management, or sponsors.
It's Monday night at 9 p.m. and time for Sex Talk with the Spiegel brothers. Dr. Ricky Spiegel is a certified sex therapist, educator, and supervisor, and his brother Larry Spiegel is a clinical sexologist and certified sexuality educator. The Spiegel brothers are here to answer all your questions about sex and sexuality, but we're unsure who to ask, including questions you didn't even know you had. They will also welcome guests from around the globe to talk about a wide variety of topics and issues within the fascinating world of sexuality. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to Sex Talk.
Good evening, and welcome to Sex Talk with the Spiegel brothers. My name is Ricky Spiegel. I'm a certified sex therapist.
And I'm Larry Spiegel, a certified sexuality educator and clinical sexologist.
And my awesome big brother.
Lovingly so.
Good to be back with you.
Same here. How's everything going?
Crazy busy.
As usual.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
There's always something to talk about.
Yes, indeed. Well, that's both the blessing and the curse.
It is pretty awesome, I have to say. There's worse jobs.
We spend our lives talking about sex. How bad can that be?
That's a pretty good gig.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed.
Right, but as you have said before, we shouldn't really have it.
Well, yeah, of course, in a perfect world, there would be no such thing as certified sexuality educators or, all therapists would be sex therapists, because how do you call yourself a couples therapist and not talk about sex?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, there's everybody's talking about sex, but when it comes to looking
But how much substance is really there?
When it comes to looking for expertise, all of a sudden everybody's like, I know.
Right, exactly. Exactly. It's kind of like taking drugs. People will take them for every reason other than they're supposed to, but when they need them, I don't want to take drugs.
Yeah. So we have this forum, Sex Talk, everywhere here on Monday nights, 9 o'clock on the East Coast. We are on the radio in South Florida on 1470 AM and 95.3 FM. You can call in to 888-565-1470.
And those of you who are already following us and watching us on Facebook know that we are also broadcasting live on Facebook. Thank you
for joining us on Facebook. Right. We're really, really thrilled to have you join us. Please hit like and share and help us spread the word.
And submit a question or a comment.
Absolutely.
Join the discussion. Love to have you.
You can call in 888-565-1470. Our lines are going to be open for about the first half of the show, because we'll be having a guest call in to talk about a wonderful new book called Sex Without Stress.
Yeah.
Or you can just hit that little send email button on the Facebook page, Sex Talk with the Spiegel brothers, and we will see your question. Our trusty producer, Freddie, will put it up on the screen, and we'll talk to you live.
Absolutely. And if people wanted to get a hold of you, I imagine that you, in this age of technology, have a phone number.
I do. I have a newfangled phone right here. I can be reached at 561-809-1080 for a private consultation or sex therapy questions or appointments. People can find us at www.modernsextherapyinstitutes.com. We're proud to have you as faculty. By the way, I'm going to have to hit you up for a date in November. Proud to partner with the brilliant West Palm Beach psychologist Rachel Needle. And our mission is to maybe find someday before my 125th birthday, when more therapists see sexuality as part of the work that they do with individual human beings and human beings in relationships.
Yes. Because
someday it's a nice fantasy.
It really is. It really is. Hold on to it.
Yeah.
Keep it going. Tweak it as you go. But it is a nice fantasy. It would be nice if we did finally get a grip. No pun intended, but we did get a grip on sex and sexual behavior and accept it like I would say most European countries do. Not as this moralistic judgment that we put on certain behaviors, but as an integral aspect of human life. Right? Not just human life, but just, life. But certainly, speaking for ourselves, it is the essence, really, the core of our humanity.
Yeah.
Yet it's
ignored. Did I ever ask you that? How come every time a college actually has a sexuality education course in the catalog, why does it always have the word human in front of it? Like, has there been some confusion? Is there some other sexuality education course that's ever been taught, like squirrel sexuality?
Well, yeah, in
or-
Florida, I think something like
Cool.
HSC 2015 is slug sex.
Yes, right.
So, don't want to confuse those.
No, that human sexuality
Yeah.
education. What is it? That's just more of that same queasy discomfort that we have to be somehow above it, right?
Right.
Like animals reproduce, humans procreate. It's, oh, how godly of us.
Yeah.
Right. It's just it's very weird.
It is. It is.
Ongoing.
It is one of those, kind of strange types of things. But again, it's sort of, part and parcel to that sort of red-headed stepchild status that sexuality education often takes. Even
Right.
in the schools that we are on faculty of, there are
Yeah, it
experts
doesn't
that
seem
are
they're
there.
very proud. Never
No.
get the vibe that they're showing us off. Hey, look,
No,
we've
absolutely
had these
not.
guys teaching
Just the
sexuality
opposite.
education for 30 years
Right.
on this campus.
Right.
Are stars. No, it's like...
No. And you have the student activities that basically will bring in
Yeah.
this sex ed boot camp. These two people, I mean, it's horrible. It really is. It's one of the worst programs I have ever seen. And I complained bitterly when they spent a lot of
They
money
spent
to
money
bring this,
to bring in
these people in
hacks
last
when
time.
It's like,
It's like to give wrong
look,
information.
You got these guys right here.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But no, see, that would be serious and that would be substantive. We can't have that. I think in a lot of ways we treat sex and sexual information. I'll make a parallel like old TV. It wasn't even that old. But, for guys to dress in drag and for any type of sort of gender bending type of expression, it was only acceptable if you were making fun of it.
Sure.
Right? If you're kind of wanting to give it substance and you want to give it a presentation as a genuine expression, no, that's taboo. Can't do that. But if you want to make fun of it, then we're all for it.
When actors in Hollywood did certain roles, right? Like Philip Seymour Hoffman played the transvestite speech pathologist that worked with Robert De Niro in that movie. I forgot the name. Or, the Americanized version of that Australian queen of the, right? When mainstream actors do drag, everybody talks about how brave.
They're brave.
Oh,
right. Aren't they brave?
Right? Oh, like, really?
Yeah.
You put on a dress and somebody's going to think you're gay.
Right.
Right? That's what it comes down to. Remember Brokeback Mountain? Oh, my God. Two heterosexual actors kissed on screen. Oh, what was that like for you? What kind of method? Like
Exactly. How did you prepare for that role?
Grow the hell up.
I'd use chapstick.
Mince. I'd want to be
mince.
considerate. And garlic.
It really is. It really is. So, and there's a lot of the stuff that just feeds, into the need to have people do what we do. When we look at what's going on all around us, we do like to start the show sometimes with what's happening, currently.
It's a potpourri
the
this
sex in
week.
the news.
Yeah, there's
There's never
more
any
stuff
shortage.
to pull your hair out, and more stuff that wants to get your hopes up, and then more of the same, right? Like what you were talking earlier, you were telling me on the way down about the male birth control pill clinical trials.
Yep.
Aside from the fact we've been hearing about this for as long as we're in the field.
Yeah, at
We're
least
talking about
20 years.
any day now. The male birth control pill.
Right.
Yeah. So
Right.
what's
And
the-
again, one of the things that's always been an obstacle, and I've always kind of found this sort of funny, little ironic, that they've been working on a pill for a number of years that would effectively reduce levels of testosterone, which they then would assume would reduce sperm production. Right? Now, remember, all throughout a lot of this, testing and the years that they've been talking about it and it's never really seen the light of day, they were talking about trying to get rid of the one main side effect, that guys would take this pill and it kind of eliminated sexual desire.
Well, I mean, guys are trying to get on testosterone, and now they're going to take a testosterone blocker.
Right. Well, just
to
again for
prevent-
blocking sperm production, which is the sort of idea behind it, but we don't know if it will even do that yet. And right now, a lot of guys that are
So-
even working on testing it are kind of complaining
They're sitting around, they're gaining weight, they're not in the mood, they're cranky,
Right.
they want to eat ice cream and watch TV. Well, it sounds familiar, right?
Yeah.
No. So
Yeah. Now, again, all of this can end up being good birth control, but it sort of defeats the purpose.
About women's birth control. Ruining the mood is not supposed to be how birth control works.
Right.
It's supposed to make you feel free and uninhibited and go wild and not worry about getting pregnant. It's not supposed to make you feel like, no,
exactly.
I don't feel like it.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's, have to at least appreciate the idea that they're trying to come up with something for men.
Something.
It's been only 3,000 years
right?
since we've had any major advance in birth control.
I mean, it's easy if you're not worried about it being reversible. Right?
Exactly.
Vasectomy is an outpatient, and urologist does that in the office. A little Novocaine, boom, boom, a couple staples.
Right.
But
right. And it's not that there's no market for it.
Yeah.
Up to 80% of men say if there was a reversible form of testosterone suppression and sperm reduction, that they would do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, that's just one of the things that has been coming up. It's, we want to keep watching it, keep our eye on it, and see where this is going to go. Hopefully, we will ultimately see a method of birth control for men to share the responsibility and also reduce the likelihood of misusing it or using it incorrectly and making mistakes, and just take away the excuse not to use it. Take a pill, you're not going to complain about not feeling anything.
Yeah.
Right? And again, I do have to throw in any guy that says they don't feel anything when they're wearing a condom, see a neurologist.
That's right.
Right? See a neurologist. You've got problems.
That's a good point. Yeah. So we're told our guest has arrived.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Good to have you, Sora. Thanks for listening.
Sora.
But I'm happy to introduce our guest tonight. Jessa Zimmerman is a sex therapist in Seattle, clear across the country. Couldn't possibly be as far away from where we are right now. Hi, Jessa.
Hi, thanks for having me so much.
Oh, it's really good to have you, and looking forward to talking about this book. Dad is going to yell at me again. I can't hold a book up straight on camera. But there it is.
Sex Without Stress.
Beautiful title, and I love the subtitle, A Couple's Guide to Overcoming Disappointment, Avoidance, and Pressure. Ideas certainly familiar to sex therapists.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
By the way, I thought the whole point behind going into a relationship was for disappointment.
You are
cynic, you.
definitely getting too old. So, how's things out there in the Pacific Northwest?
Actually, we were having a lovely day today. Fall has come early, which is disappointing, but it's gorgeous today.
Nice. I love Seattle. It's such a great town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just so far
it's
away and
amazing
tends
place.
to be so gray.
Well, sure. Yeah. One of our first guests was our old friend Roger Libby.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you guys are acquainted.
Yes, we are. We are.
A pioneer and a fellow ASEC member. In fact,
Yes.
Jessa and I've met at a couple of ASEC conferences in recent years. And really glad. Thank you for including me in the preview. When is the book when's the official release? This month?
Well, funny story. It turns out it's already published. Because given that this is my first book, I didn't realize that when you actually approve the proof, it goes
They're
live.
good to go.
So it's sort of like a premature birth. I thought I had till September 25th, but no, it's already out.
Very good.
Very nice. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Can you
thank you.
just give an overview, a synopsis? Tell us people what the book is about.
Well, the book is based on what I see so much in my practice, right, which is couples that have a really good relationship. They're great friends. They can communicate. They co-parent, and yet they're still struggling with sex to the point where they're avoiding it. You guys must hear this, where it's stressful. It feels loaded. They feel like they're failing. So, like, every time they go to have sex, it feels like they're going to, it's a test they're going to fail.
Right.
So I wanted to sort of normalize that experience because it's so common, alleviate, change some of the expectations that people have about sex and how they think about it so that they can't fail, really. And then it really walks them through an experiential process to change it. There's a touching exercise that I use in the book that they use focusing on a lot of different things, but trying to take all the pressure off of what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and looking through and seeing that section on touch and how you address some of those issues, I like that not only how practical and how important that is, but it's also very much in line of how we do talk to people about that as therapists. That idea of non-demand pleasuring. How, there's so much that goes into people's sense of their being touched. It does put pressure on them, and in the way you kind of handled that and wrote that, it's sort of taking a lot of that away, and I think that's so important because, as you say, there's so many couples that the prospect of being touched just becomes this major sort of defensive reaction.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and think about all the people, that you've probably worked with, right, where they start saying no to any sort of physical touch with their partner, right? Like they won't even kiss because they're afraid of starting something they can't finish or what's expected. Even a simple hug and a kiss starts to be loaded.
I think there's also an often seen gender script difference that happens sometimes where men just read any kind of intimate touch as sexual touch, don't really get the non-sexual intimate touch. And so I've heard a lot of women say, I don't even want to, we're sitting watching TV, if I just reach over and stroke his neck, he gets an erection and thinks it's sexy time. And so I don't even...
Right. A lot of guys have only sort of 1 degree of arousal.
Yeah. The book is so full of sticky notes. It's just so full of things that made me go, yes, yes. And so many of my favorite kind of pointers. It's a really, I found it to be a wonderful kind of non-sex therapy book just for people. It doesn't really feel like, it's going to add pressure to an already pressured situation.
It's not a heavy read.
Like I have to say my favorite one of all is also happens to be advice that I give very often about being selfish. There's a right way and a wrong way to think about being selfish. Usually men are more or are not as other-centered lovers as women are generally conditioned to be, if I could overgeneralize along gender lines. But so often men and women are so obsessed and preoccupied. Again, we talk about all the time, they're working too hard to be having fun and playing.
Right.
Right.
And there's all these pressures and expectations that nobody's really turned on. And so they describe the sex as perfunctory or routine. And if they would be more selfish with their own arousal and own it for themselves and realize that's going to turn on your partner.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you're never more compelling than when you're having a great time, you know?
Right.
And I actually think there's a lot of pressure on men. I mean, in heterosexual couples, say, right, because we all work with same-sex couples too, but that men are supposed to know what to do, and somehow it's their job to get their female partner turned on and going, and that's a lot of pressure too. So,
sure.
I find that the men to have that relief, think about yourself for a while, be selfish, pursue your own pleasure. It's a flow. You got to give and you've got to take. So.
Right. And I would also look at it, especially looking at heterosexual men in particular, would take a little bit of issue with what you just said, because I think a lot of heterosexual men really are other-oriented. They are, in a sense, partner-oriented, but in a way that I find very manipulative and very sort of self-serving and defensive, where it's that sense of they have to get their partner off first. Right. I'm going to focus all my energy and attention on getting my partner off, and the subtext in that is so they won't complain about me and what I'm doing after that for myself, or when I do maybe let myself go, maybe it's a little quicker than I wanted to, but you know what? She already got hers, so I'm good no matter what. Right. It's sort of like putting themselves in a protective bubble.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And how does that remove
they want to get their partner off for their own sense of self-esteem, like it's their accomplishment.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
was just meeting with a couple, actually, this happens where, I'll be talking to people about I believe each person's responsible for their own orgasm.
Sure.
You enlist your partner, but it's ultimately up to you, your own pleasure. And taking pride in getting somebody off, I think, is misplaced.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's very ego-driven.
First of all, that everybody's responsible for their own orgasm should be chiseled in stone somewhere. And again, the idea that the measure of a lover. This is part of most guys' script, right? The measure of how good a lover you are is how much you can get a partner off. When, again, missing the point. You're supposed to be getting off together.
Right, exactly.
Right.
It's supposed to be a shared
your
pleasure.
own and each other's sexuality. And of course, I'd love you have a section, another sex therapy 101 theme of enjoying the journey. And that also takes the focus. It's not supposed to be two people racing toward orgasm.
Right.
You're supposed to, I always tell a lot of new couples who start sex therapy, first thing we're doing is cutting the end zones off the field. Right?
Ah, well,
There's no direction. We're not moving down the field. It's more like the floor exercises in gymnastics where you're going to play all over the field. And there's no end zones anymore.
I like that.
I know. I mean, I say to people, so frequently they'll go to have like intercourse, right? As soon as he's hard, as soon as she's wet, just clear the bar of what you need to do that. And it's like, why not play way up here? Enjoy that space.
Absolutely.
What's the hurry?
Yeah, that's why I've always disliked the term and the concept of foreplay.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, even people that do this work, even sex therapists, are still often, framing it from the standpoint of all of this is what's leading up to intercourse.
Yeah,
still
as if
thinking
the real
intercourse is the main
right?
event.
The play before.
Right.
And of course, how many men in particular, think that doesn't count
Right.
because we didn't have sex.
And that's
We were just fooling
the
around.
whole sex.
Right?
Yeah.
We used to joke around in the old Planned Parenthood days. We need to talk about FATDs.
Right, exactly.
Right? An awful lot of fooling around transmitted diseases were happening.
Well, that's also something that came out of all this abstinence nonsense as well. That it, again, didn't change behavior, it just changed the language.
Right.
Right?
So let's
So the only bad thing was intercourse there, right? You could do everything else.
Anything right. And if
And
we're
that's
having
not
intercourse, we have to use protection. So we're not going to use that because that's having intercourse. But if I just put it in a little bit, we're not really having sex now. We're just fooling around.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's that wonderful made-up word, outer course. That's a nice different take on foreplay, at least. It removes that sexist
I would say that's
thing.
a slight improvement, but to me, I'd still rather just call it all sex.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely.
Even-
I mean, it can all be
there's another-
gratifying in and of itself.
Another phrase I really dislike, people use a lot, again, even sex therapists, mutual masturbation.
Yeah.
Unless
Right.
technology is involved and you're on different parts of the planet, then I'll call it mutual masturbation. But if you're together in the same room, no, it's sex. You're not masturbating each other. There's no such thing. Masturbation means you're alone.
Right.
Right.
Or yourself. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like sharing this with people, with clients, is part of what's taking the pressure off. If they realize that no matter what they're doing, it's about pleasure and it's about connection. It's all sex. It all counts. You cannot fail. And
Right.
That's really what I want people to take away is they can't fail this.
Yeah.
And I also like, again, part of your perspective, it's, and there's sort of a balancing act. On the one hand, and one of the questions you ask in your promotional materials, one of those couples questions, isn't this supposed to be easy?
Right.
Yeah.
So we have, and we're, I think, very guilty of doing this ourselves as therapists. We do tell people and we encourage people, it takes work. You both have to work.
Yeah.
But I think we have to diffuse that word a little bit more because I think for a lot of people it's become way too much work. And the prospect of the amount of work is also what often shuts people down before they even start.
And another reason why sex therapy should be fun. There was a brilliant quote, and at the last annual STAR conference, all of the heavy hitters, pioneers in the field were debating who deserved the credit for the quote, and nobody could seem to figure out who. But the quote was, sex is perfectly natural,
but not naturally
perfect.
I've been saying that my entire life. Truly.
Well, you heard it somewhere.
I don't.
Maybe
I may have.
Maybe Saul Gordon. That sounds like something he might have said. But that's a lot of what we do with couples in our offices, right? Mm-hmm. Help them remember it's supposed to be fun.
Right.
You guys are lovers, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not supposed to be obligated to.
Yeah.
No, it's Saturday night,
Right.
honey. You know what that means.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things too that again, and as you're writing about some of these in the chapter, when you talk about some of that pressure and the pressure of expectations, you also do mention, and maybe say something about this as well, if you would, how we're often setting ourselves up with these unrealistic expectations. Not the least of which is that in order for sex to be good in a relationship, it's supposed to be spontaneous.
Right.
Oh,
And everybody's
right.
supposed to be equally in the mood. Right.
Right.
Please,
And
Jesse.
just naturally arise from whatever you're doing. And not when real life comes in. If, kids, jobs, other activities. It's like, of course it doesn't just naturally arise over time. And as you know, the brain chemistry changes too, right? We're not coming from that honeymoon period, that infatuation phase that can drive so much of our, really easy desire. So I just wrote an article actually for a parenting magazine called, scheduling is not a dirty word.
Nice.
Right. Yeah.
And I tell clients too, it's like, don't schedule sex. I mean, sex in like the intercourse concept of it. Schedule an opportunity to be sexual.
Just the
right?
time to be together.
To prioritize your
you
relationship.
You start, you kiss, you touch, you do what you want to do while you're there. You have a great time. Doesn't matter how it ends.
All you're
Right.
doing is showing each other that the relationship is a priority and the reason why you're enduring all this stress and money
Right.
and bills and soccer practice and everything else.
Right.
Exactly.
And I've often framed it in terms of, I've always been a real fan of irony. And I love life's ironies. And I think one of our biggest ironies is, in order to truly be spontaneous, you do have to do a lot of planning.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's really about setting up, again, the opportunity, setting up the mood, setting up that time for us to just be together, even if we're just looking at each other, even if we're just, just telling each other how much we appreciate them. Just giving ourselves
Absolutely.
that time can set up all of these other wonderful no-pressure opportunities.
Yeah, the metaphor I use in the book, it was something I say to almost all my clients. It's like, I think about sex as going to the playground. You agree to go on this outing with your partner. You don't know what you're going to do once you get there. You stay as long as you want to stay. You see what you feel like when you're there. You don't have to go down the slide, right? Maybe just swing a little bit. It doesn't matter. Right, it's the outing that counts. So I have a lot of
Beautiful.
clients that now schedule sort of playground time,
That's nice.
take the pressure off again. So.
Well, speaking of time and schedules, ours is always painfully short on this. We've got to get sponsors and go to a full hour, but our time is up here for tonight. Thank you again, Jessa Zimmerman. Here's the book, Sex Without Stress, A Couple's Guide to Overcoming Disappointment, Avoidance, and Pressure. Go to Amazon or your local bookseller. Good luck with the book. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
And we're going to have to sign off as well because you know what the music means.
Yes, indeed.
So thank you for joining us this evening, and join us here next Monday at 9 and every Monday
Every
for
Monday.
Sex Talk with the Spiegel Brothers.
Yes, indeed. Have a great week.
Peace.
You've been listening to Sex Talk with the Spiegel Brothers. Join us every Monday night at 9 p.m. on WNN, 1470 AM and 95.3 FM. Or watch live streaming video at AMP2 TV Productions on Facebook, or look for the shows on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us again next week. The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of the station, its staff, management, or